to wine, we got cheese. There you go. All right, so come on in and look, I cannot tell you how honored I am that you all would take time out of your busy schedules to come out this beautiful venue so I can share some thoughts, perspectives, and insights with you about where we are today and what we're trying to do with this foundation, because the most important thing is this building was brought up in 1883. And in 1883, I don't think anyone would have thought that a young man such as myself would be standing here giving a speech here. That's right. And see, that's the beauty of America. Right. And when you understand a kid that was born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, has that type of opportunity, what we must make sure is that other kids have that same type of opportunity. Other kids understand that the greatness of America is not about where you're born or where you came from. It's all about what's in your heart, your drive, your determination, your individual will that allows you to have any level of success and achievement that you can have. And that's what we want to try to do. See, politically, when you understand that in the last election cycle, Mitt Romney won 73% of the counties in the United States of America. Go back and look at the 2012 electoral map, and you see all of that red. 27% of the counties in America gave Barack Obama over 313 electoral votes. It was a woodshed, as we call it down south in SEC football. Okay. And going to the University of Tennessee, we've been on the receiving ends of too many woodsheds over the last few years. Okay, so we got to change that. Get back to how it was when I was there. But what you have to recognize is that they have broken this down to a science. If you look at those counties, all of those counties are centered around urban centers. Then who is living in the urban centers? Minority communities. But they're minority communities that really, if you understood their fundamental principles and values, they're most aligned with us and what we believe in. And so what we have to try to do is educate them on what conservatism really is. You know, when we talk about faith, we talk about family, we talk about education, that's the bedrock of who we are and what we believe in. And that should be absolutely the bedrock of what they believe in also. You know, when the Democrat convention comes out and they have to vote to put God back into their platform, we should have gone to every single black church in the United States of America and said, is this what you want to be associated with? I will never forget the time that I had a conversation with the former chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Emmanuel Cleaver, who is also an ordained minister out in Kansas City. And I asked him one simple question. I said, do I call you Reverend, do I call you Congressman? I want to ask you this question. How do you reconcile what you're preaching on Sunday with how you're voting on Monday through Friday? That's good. And he could not answer. So that's what we have to do to start convicting people, especially these churches, and start looking at these communities. Remember what happened just recently in Chicago over the Independence Day weekend? 16 murders, almost 60 wounded in shooting incidents. And all those gun laws is falling apart. Look at Detroit, falling apart. Go back to my old community in Atlanta, Georgia, the same neighborhood Dr. King was brought up in, falling apart. When Bill de Blasio stands up and goes out to charter schools in New York City, the Success Academy in Harlem, we should have stood up and said so. When Barack Obama in April 2009 canceled the DC school voucher program, we should have said so. Because Booker T. Washington, back at the turn of the century, had 3 points: education, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance. The black community was stronger before the Great Society programs of Lyndon Johnson than it is today. Okay? 50 years ago, out-of-wedlock birth rates in America was 6%. Out-of-wedlock birth rates today is at 42%. Out-of-wedlock birth rates in the black community today, 72%. But if people don't know these things, if people don't know about Lyndon Johnson saying any woman that has a girl that has a baby out of wedlock, as long as she keeps the man out of the house, she will continue to get a check. Look at the ramifications. Look at the second and third order, collateral damage, unintended consequences. That's why we have to have a means by which we go into these communities and we talk about who we are, what we stand for, which is truly what they believe in, Hispanic community, black community. The other thing that we want to try to support through this foundation are our high school junior ROTC programs. I started in 1976 as a sophomore integrated high school in a junior ROTC program. Lieutenant Colonel Pagonis, Major Heredia, Master Sergeant Buchanan, Sergeant First Classman Michael. I'll never forget it. Korea and Vietnam War veterans. They kept me on the right path. Because no matter what my mother and father were teaching me, they made sure that when I went to school, I didn't fall in with the wrong crowd. And that's the exact same thing we need to do for young men and women in our inner city communities, is get them around positive role models. Men and women who have been willing to make that last full measure of devotion for this country, to teach them about honor, integrity, character, and leadership, and what it means to be an American. That's what we're trying to do with this foundation. That's why I cannot thank you enough for coming out on this Saturday. I know if we had had this event that was in the fall, you probably would have nobody here, because I would be getting ready for a Tennessee game, they'd be getting ready for a Florida game. But thank you so much for coming out, because we are at a critical point, a critical time for this country. If we don't get this nation back on its fundamental footing, then the next 50 years, 100 years, I don't know. And always remember, in September 1787, when Benjamin Franklin came out of Independence Hall after the deliberations of the Constitution were over, he was met by a Philadelphia socialite, a woman by the name of Mrs. Powell. Mrs. Powell asked Dr. Franklin a simple question. Well, doctor, what is it that we have? Do we have a republic, or do we have a monarchy? Franklin replied, we have a republic if you can keep it. 217 some odd years later, we're struggling to keep this republic. Because remember, in 2008, someone stood up and said, we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming America. And no one asked the question, what are we fundamentally transforming to? But more importantly, what are we fundamentally transforming from? And the only way that we get people to understand the principles and values is to educate them